and welcome to the Temple of Isis and our Sunday service and salon. So I'm deTraci Regula, and I'll be leading us today. Disconnected. Okay, it looks like we may have some video problems today. My apologies in advance if that turns out to be the case, but we've already lost signal once in the first 30 seconds, so that's never a really good sign. But anyway, let's go ahead and begin with the honoring of the directions. Let us honor the south, element of fire with the flames ever glowing. Let us honor the west, element of water with the rivers ever flowing. Let us honor the north, element of earth with the seeds ever growing. And we honor the spirits above and below with the wisdom ever knowing. And we honor our bodies both without and within with a love forever showing. All right, and now let us start with our prayer, Divine Isis. Divine Isis, goddess of 10,000 names, I invoke your grace. Come to our temple, O goddess, dwell in our shrine. Make our hearths your altars, our hearts your home. Bring vision and healing to those who use this shrine. Give us wisdom and unveil the truth, and with thy feathery wings protect us. Breathe into us the breath of life and health and strength. All right. And today's reading from the 42 ideals of, from the scrolls collected by Lady Loreon is the scroll on the sacred butterfly. And this is an appropriate moment for that because we are starting to see some little butterflies break out. Today the weather is quite warm, and I suspect that we will be having more of them fluttering around. May they be in great abundance this year. I know we've had a very low monarch butterfly season at the coast after one that was really quite extraordinary lately last year. So these things do vary and go up and down, but it's always scary when the numbers drop. So hopefully that is only a temporary aberration. And Lady Loreon, of course, for those who know her, she had a passion for insects and different creatures of that type, which was very unusual. And when I would travel with her, if we were near a zoo that had a good insect collection, we often would stop and look at how they were displaying them and what they had. And she was very fascinated with all of them. And that was something that I shared to some degree with her. So we had some fun with exploring the insectariums of the world. So anyway, here's what she has to say about the marvel of the butterfly. One marvel of nature that lights up our day is the butterfly. If you have a garden at your home, there are plants that can entice butterflies to come visit you. These are special plants that attract the butterflies. And some of those special plants are milkweed, which is very good for the monarch butterflies, which I just mentioned. And also echinacea or coneflower is a good butterfly plant. And there are many others. So with a little research on what thrives in your own area, you can really not just entice the butterflies to come to you, but support them in providing what they need, either for their nourishment, or in some cases, butterflies will only lay their eggs on very specific plants. So it's really crucial to help the butterflies to have the right plants. And these are usually beautiful flowering plants. And they're generally natives, so they thrive in poor conditions often. And so it's really a wonderful thing if we can enhance our butterfly wildlife through planting some things that they like, and we'll like them too. The butterfly is unique in that it has 4 stages: the egg, the larva or caterpillar, the pupa or chrysalis, and the butterfly itself. The chrysalis is when the caterpillar molts into an inactive, mummy-like stage. I've often wondered, she says, could the ancient Egyptians have devised the concepts of a mummy after witnessing the wonder of the butterfly process? And she may be right, because even some modern researchers have looked at certain types of mummy wrappings that seem to be following the little ridges and everything that the pupa has in it. And so it may have been that some aspects of mummification were based on the idea that you were in this cocoon from which you would arise renewed and transformed. The Greek word for butterflies is psyche, which means soul. And she says, I have not found the word for butterfly in ancient Egyptian, but there is a famous tomb painting that includes numerous butterflies and also demonstrates that cats were taken out on boats and helped to catch birds for its owner who would be fishing. His wife and child were shown also on board the reed boat with him, enjoying the wonderful wildlife. Could the butterfly be held so sacred that it was not depicted or used as a hieroglyph when it would have been so prevalent and obvious to utilize? Somehow, I think so. And certainly there were many butterflies in ancient Egypt, and occasionally, very rarely, but occasionally they are depicted on some aspects of the art or on the tomb walls. But perhaps it was considered so sacred that it could not be shown. It is said that butterflies go wherever they please, and please wherever they go. They are messengers of nature and harbingers of joy. Butterflies are also a barometer for the well-being of any area. If they are prevalent, it indicates the health of our ecosystems. If an area is toxic with pesticides, their presence will be absent. Their purpose is to pollinate plants, and they neither bite, sting, nor transmit disease. Therefore, it is well to plan a butterfly garden if you can, and encourage others to do the same, as we're doing here today. Truly, the butterfly is a perfect symbol of health, beauty, love, and happiness, and their metamorphosis is a sign of hope, suggesting possible reincarnation. Moths are also to be revered and fly at night under the moon. Both these flying creatures are a miracle of life on this planet. And what Lady Loreon doesn't go into is that one of her first and deeply profound spiritual experiences was when she was a little girl recovering from a sickness, and there was a butterfly cocoon that she was watching. And she got to watch its gradual development over a long period of time, and there wasn't much else for her to do, so she was extremely focused on this. And what happened was that finally the butterfly, burst into its full beingness, and it was in an enclosure in her room. And somehow, which she never understood how, abruptly a second butterfly appeared. And apparently this was, like a male butterfly seeking a female butterfly. I'm not sure of the exact details on that. But suddenly she had the two butterflies, and then they both vanished. And so this was profoundly meaningful to her. And Lady Loreon did not have the happiest of childhoods. And so this really touched her in an amazing way. And so when the time came many, many years later to write her autobiography, she used the symbol of the moth, which was one of these big, beautiful Cecropian moths, to illustrate her book and to discuss some of her spiritual process via this insect, this moth. And whenever we would see one of those moths, it was always a special moment for her. And that was something that we definitely always cherished. And I remember she was so delighted once because a large moth, not the Cecropian kind, but still one of these, I think, Artemis moths, which is not inappropriate for a temple of Isis because of the connections between Isis and Artemis, but one of these big triangular winged moths lit on a statue of Isis in the small temple. And she was so delighted with this, and we took photographs of it, and it was really a very meaningful thing because she saw it as a symbol of growth and transformation. And also, I think she took some pleasure in the fact that she could see the beauty in insects and so on so vividly, whereas a lot of people, they're just something to be smushed, they're something to be annoyed about, they're not to be cherished. But she really found just the mechanics of them fascinating, and the different metallic shades that some of them would have. All of this was intriguing to her. And now that we're in the midst of what some people are calling the bug-pocalypse, I cherish her love of them even more, because we really have lost so many insects. And I was clearing out some plant overgrowth the other day, and I wasn't using gloves. And it used to be that I would always use gloves. For one thing, I didn't want to get bugs on my hands. I didn't want to squish bugs on my hands. And I realized that I'd been clearing out quite a bit of, these dead vines and, dry leaves, and a place that you would expect insect life. And there was none. I didn't disturb a single insect, even though I was pulling things out and digging things out and crumbling leaves and all of that. Nothing was running on my hand. Nothing was flying up into my face. And that just brought home the reality of this bug-pocalypse. And although we are in an area here where it's very beautiful with many vineyards and really, just a splendid area, and in some ways a somewhat untouched area, that's an illusion, because like it or not, most grape growing is not organic, and it requires a great deal of pesticides. We see the little planes come through, something like a Cessna will be flying low over the fields. Well, it's usually not a pleasure trip. It's usually depositing some sort of insecticide. And this creates local health problems, and it is not as benign as you might think. But one of the things is that just like, when tuna fishing was catching all those dolphins, there's so much bykill, not just of what is going after the grapes, but everything, that we lose a great deal of diversity. And something that people forget is that when you start killing off the insects, you also kill off the birds that rely on insects, and also the bats. So all of that has a huge effect. And so you get less songbirds. They're often insectivores. You get fewer bats, who naturally will help control your insect population and eat mosquitoes and things like that. And suddenly these other creatures are not there. And then you get into other predators, like bobcats will frequently be, eating grasshoppers, or they'll be eating small lizards or birds and things like that. Suddenly there's fewer of the birds, and so things start getting out of balance very readily, all because of our lack of appreciation and protection for insects. So think about that before you go squishing your way along, that these creatures are valuable, they're fascinating, they have consciousness, and we should act to preserve them as much as we possibly can. I know it gets frustrating, and I hate, when ants get into this or ants get into that, and I try to not make that possible for them. But really taking these powerful insecticides, which affect us too, to these little ants and other little creatures, that's really overkill. And that is exactly what we get, is overkill. So I would, in Lady Loreon's spirit, advise everyone to plant some things for the butterflies at least. If you can't stand other insects, okay, but please, let's at least encourage more butterflies and more beautiful moths. I remember when every streetlight would have its cloud of moths. When's the last time you saw that? When is the last time that you saw that? And I remember when I would be driving for a long distance, if you took a 200-mile trip, well, you could pretty much tell where you'd been, because you had dead insects from each region on your car grill or on your windshield. And that's not happening anymore. The estimates are that we've lost 80% of our insects, and that's too much. So think about it. And when you do have a visitation from a moth or some other little flying winged creature, be gentle with it and look to see what you can do to maybe make that a little bit more frequent an occurrence in your area. All right. Well, if anyone has any comments on the topic of insects, we will be glad to address them. Do you have anything to say on the topic of our little...
Well, yeah, I have had success speaking to ant invasions and, respecting their abilities to survive. And they usually come in either when it's raining or it's getting really dry out.
Mm-hmm.
And say, you guys have been around a lot longer than we have, and you know how to survive in those conditions. This is my space, and I appreciate it if you be outside. And, they've left. Sometimes it's taken a few conversations, but I've had real good success with that. And I didn't have to spend a dime or buy any poisons or anything. And it's amazing. Everything's sentient. And they got the message and left.
It's interesting because I was once in conversation with a woman, and she was, I somehow the topic of ants and things came up, and she said, well, there's a very easy way of keeping ants out of your kitchen. And I said, oh, do tell me. She said, well, I'm on food stamps, and so I can't, those don't cover anything like insecticides or anti-insect things. It only covers food. And she says, but my mother taught me that what you do is you get a jar of jelly, and it's the cheapest jelly that you can possibly get, and you take the lid off and put it outside. And she said, the ants will go there. It's the easiest source of food. It's the sugar that they want. And she said, one jar will last you maybe 6 or 8 weeks before they completely, eradicate every last bit of jelly in that jar. And they won't bother your kitchen while it's there. So I did try that at one point, and it did work. So I can recommend it as a valuable technique, because ants are smart. They don't want to work too hard for their stuff, and if you're not leaving stuff out for them, they're not going to want to work hard to get to it. But the jar of jelly concealed in your garden will take care of your ants. So if you're not bent on destruction and eradication, just give them a jar of jelly. And apparently they don't care what flavor, too. So if you've got that jar of jelly in the back of your refrigerator that you'll never actually serve again, perfect. So feed the hungry, even if they are ants, and hopefully you will get the benefit that you want. All right. Is there anything else we should be attending to today? If so, go ahead and put it in the comments. But I suspect that many people are outside today too, just enjoying this now unseasonably warm weather. It seems like, as I've said before, it's extremely hard to predict where we are on the spectrum of cold and hot, but we were actually touching into the 80s today, and which is definitely a reminder that the warmer days are coming, and we'll have to switch from trying to stay warm to trying to stay cool. Such is life. May we have nice moderate temperatures in all senses as we move ahead. May things be moderate. At least that's my fervent prayer. All right, well, is there anything else you'd like to add?
I did, when they get on like cat food or something, I would take them outside and I say, this is where I like you to eat, outside. This is outside, this is what I'm talking about. Just leave it out there for a while. So it was like that jar of jelly.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Well, now that we've learned more on the art of ant wrangling, hopefully our little friendly creatures will not be such a trial for us to deal with. And cherishing all life is something that we admire and wish for. So may we cherish all the human lives as well. All right. Well, thank you for joining today. I wish you a very good week filled with insight and understanding. May you accomplish what you wish to accomplish, and may the energy and capabilities of your body serve and support the needs of your soul as we go through these days.